Hey, it's Jay. I have an unreasonable amount of love for independent animation from the 70s to the 90s. Mainly because that's the stuff I saw in my childhood. It is definitely all nostalgia. Most of the stuff is not very good. But one specific type of independently made cartoon is the Christmas special. Christmas specials are big money. Everyone is sitting around during the holidays, and the Family Channel needs to fill an entire month of programming. It's a relatively small business venture for an established media, such as comic strips. It worked for Charlie Brown and Garfield, so why not commission a Christmas special and feel out if that's a lucrative market? There's just a couple of issues with that, and that is that comic strips are almost universally terrible. It's all stock characters and bad puns, not a lot to build a plot on really. So unless they got a great idea, it's gonna fall pretty flat, like these ones I found. They're all kinda bad, charming more in their incompetence than presentation. Some of the art is good, but a lot of time is spent on floundering jokes and dull plots about the Christmas spirit or whatever. Also, all the original songs they wrote for these are just god-awful.
I wanted rainbows, got this instead.
Joy,
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 joy.
joy.
So let's joke on these one-off Christmas specials based on comic strips from the 80s. From worst to best, here is a little Christmas list. It is highly likely that you don't remember, for better or for worse, the family comic strip that aged in real time, a baffling decision for a serialized daily comic strip, which eventually ground to a halt under its own momentum in 2008 as the children grew up and married and they ran out of stories to tell. This particular little tale happened early in the strip's history, when the children are still young and their life is super mundane. The entire thrust of the episode is Elizabeth lost her one-of-a-kind doll at the store and the janitor finds it, and he's a cranky piece of shit about it, but does return it after seeing an ad in the newspaper, and then they invite him over for Christmas dinner. Exceedingly dull, nothing to write home about. Michael's a little know-it-all and he sucks. At one point, Ellie tries to yell at Michael and John cuts her off. This sucks, Dad. Discipline your children. He was ignoring his mother. Anyway, it's not very good, and they didn't try to make more of them until 1992, when the kids had personalities, and then they produced a series in 2000, because of course this is a Canadian joint, and you know those Canadians. Canadian content will be mandatory. I've seen some of the later specials. They also aren't good, but they're outside of my very arbitrary timeline, so we're gonna move on. This comic strip based on the artist's actual family went the opposite direction and kept all the children eternally under the age of 7, with a penchant for saying just the darndest things all the time in a very irritating way. I never find them funny, just silly, and this episode of television is also just silly. The tale is some real Christian content. While it is not extremely specific, it's a world where Christ is the reason for the season, and stupid little children like Jeffy ask Santa Claus to let Grandpa visit from heaven. There are a lot of little scenes where his older siblings start a snitch chain up to the rents because they understand there's no way that's happening and want him to handle it without losing faith in Santa Claus, and also Jesus, I assume. He gets a little talking to about how Grandpa isn't going to be able to come, but it was nice of him to want that for Daddy. Then Grandpa's ghost, an actual character in the family circus who's always just kind of around, he leads Jeffy to the nearest closet to find the family's misplaced Christmas star. It's a Christmas miracle. Pretty boring stuff, obviously, although it gets a few points for a couple of good bits, mostly involving PJ, the non-verbal infant in the family.
PJ's looking at me.
He's just got some star power, you know? He's no Maggie, but at least he has never said something so precious and very, very stupid. Otherwise, it's a wash. They don't even pull out any of the classics, like The Dotted Line, or Not Me, or some Billy art, or Why Do I Know So Much About the Family Circus? I don't even like it. I never read any Bloom County, really, because the only thing I ever saw of it were two morons staring at their dicks in gross-looking underwear, but I had an impression it was well-liked, a short run but beloved, and then I did a little research and discovered that Berkeley Breathe is just some white guy, and he ripped off Doonesbury. Doonesbury! Boy, those clowns in Congress, am I right? So I don't really like this. While the animation is fun and dynamic, these characters stink. Opus is a self-absorbed little turd, and Bill the cat keeps jerking around in a way that's pretty disturbing. This cat needs to be in a facility somewhere, for his own safety. Not hanging out with this jerk whose quest to fly leads him to say some very mean things to Bill, and never apologizing. Anyway, Santa crash lands in the ocean and almost dies. But Opus is a penguin, which was useful in this situation, so he gets his Christmas wish because he's now friends with these ducks. It's a Christmas miracle. If you're a fan of this kind of animation, I think this is quality that. I just don't like it that much. Too jittery. And the jokes are bad. Not funny, a lot of long-winded, wordy morass followed by a random generic reference.
Or a fly-infested, worm-infused, molded, mildewed scrap of rotten banana. Or a network executive.
Or it's just some unhidden screaming from a couple of nobodies, I'm sure. Let me check. Oh, Tress McNeil and Robin Williams. Oh, sure. And they top it off with some transphobic jokes. Great. But at least they don't do the weird underwear bit. If there was one of these specials I expected to have overt Christian themes, it would have been this one, but it's actually a Santa thing, as this was produced before the comic authors returned to Christianity. And it features a known comedy team, Bob and Ray, to drag the plot along with this stupid little scheme to invent Christmas so they could cash in on selling trees and gifts. And of course all the other cavemen fall for it, because they have nothing better to do, being immortal caricatures of cavemen with no need for food, warmth, or even companionship, all of them living alone in a small undecorated cave, only living to exist in a moment where they are needed for an unfunny gag. The women don't even have names. They're literally called the cute chick and the fat broad. They don't give them names until 2019. Their names are Grace and Jane, and they're named after the original author's mother and mother-in-law, which is, somehow, worse. But this show, as an artifact in itself, removed from all the pseudo-sexual religious stuff this entire affair is burdened with, this is fine. Bob and Ray are pretty charming, and the soundtrack on this one is the only one I'd call inspired. It gets a little funky. A lot of stupid things happen, jokes that don't land are just inexplicable. It's fine, it's watchable. It was made by a Canadian workmanlike animation team that was formed after Rocket Robin Hood went up in flames. That is a super weird, oddly specific detail that means nothing to nobody. If you want to watch a mediocre Christmas special, this would not be a bad choice. It'd be a weird choice. It's a weird 22 minutes of animation, but you do you, man. You know Ziggy, right? This little potato man, always standing in front of a counter where some bureaucrat is telling him he sucks. Well, in this animated special, he's more of a chaotic gremlin than a put-upon everyman. He sees an ad for Santas in the newspaper, and he's gonna go do that for no reason. Ziggy doesn't say anything at all. He's just going with the flow. Maybe a fey creature, hard to tell. He's got a mirror demon like Rockula, so there's some kind of magic going on. Holiday magic, presumably. The ad in the paper was a scam, a very poorly planned scam. Just have a bunch of random guys off the street go around in a Santa outfit and collect money for charity. This guy is the worst part of the whole thing, somehow, as his scheme is discovered and everyone involved gets arrested off-screen, and we have to endure 2 minutes of a bunch of dudes ad-libbing gangster chatter. The whole thing is kinda slow, all the scenes are about 20 seconds too long. Well, it turns out that the cauldron Ziggy was given is magical, or maybe Ziggy is magical, but allows him to pull out a wad of cash whenever he needs it, which gets the attention of this shady thief who shadows him all day. He spends his magic money to buy every single turkey being offered in this back alley by this broad stereotype, only to release them all into the streets. Those turkeys are all getting run over by cars. Ziggy is a public nuisance, so it's no surprise when the cop tries to haul him into the station. Unfortunately, someone is dressed like Santa and they are near an orphanage, so in the interest of public safety, the cop just starts singing Silent Night and gets everybody invited inside except the pets. Well, Ziggy won't have that, and lets everyone in and gets the thief to start handing out the presents that he just magicked into existence. Everyone is overcome with holiday cheer, and the cop decides not to arrest both of them, even though he had definitive proof of a crime. It's a Christmas miracle. Then Ziggy is off, having done his odd little deed, and we're all left wondering what on earth that whole thing was all about. Of these, this is the best one, mostly from the talent and craft of director Richard Williams, just going ham with the animation and giving us some real visual oddness. Look at this Santa Claus implode. This was released the same year as the TV special about his decade-long journey to produce The Thief and the Cobbler, a full decade before a version of it was eventually released due to the funding received for leading animation on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So I've got to give him some credit for that. It's a cute little thing. Would not go full hidden gem, but a good view for animation heads. So that's what Christmas specials were like in the 80s. They were all pretty calm and kind of irony poisoned, not very high stakes. The real life Santa Claus is only put in peril once, and even then he doesn't seem that stressed about it. Just some stupid little stories about these dumb little characters. And when you think about it, isn't that what Christmas is all about? Alright, I'm going to take a break, so you don't get to know what I'm doing next. I haven't decided yet, gotta do some planning, watch some old stuff, stop thinking about making a video for 4 hours every day, rest. I'll be back. This is fun. I'm glad that people are liking some of the stuff. Early February at the latest. Have a restful holiday. A cheers to you and yours. We got a lot of struggle coming, so stay safe and sane. I'll see you in a bit. Thanks again.